Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. This ain't no showdown edition. We got two games today, baby. Monday night, somewhat of a doubleheader, kind of concurrent games, but you got Titans, Bills, you got Vikings, Eagles, and we're here to break it all down. I'm Dave Loughran, going full Alex Baker today. We're rocking the jersey for the first time ever that I've done a show, ever. First time I've ever worn a jersey during a show, but it feels good. Maybe it'll bring us some luck today as well. Hit me up at Laughy_D, LOUGHY_D on Twitter, and hit up Neil Orfield at Player Q DFS. So Neil doesn't have the Vikings jersey, but he does have a throwback jacket that he tossed on. Show the people what you're rocking, Neil.
Yeah, so I got the it was a free little jacket that I got from Sports Illustrated. Like they have you fill out your favorite team, they'll send you a free jacket with a Sports Illustrated logo on it. It's a size or two too small for me right now. I wasn't planning on wearing it, but I saw you coming in with that beautiful Eagles jersey, and I thought I can't have Laughy be the only one repping his team here tonight. So I threw on the little Vikings jacket.
I'm throwing it back to the LaShawn McCoy days. My wife got this for me a week before he got traded for Kiko Alonso. You know, a pack of cigarettes and a hoagie. When did you get that jacket?
I don't know, 6 years ago. I have no idea. It was just like fill out this form, I'll send you a jacket. It wasn't like something I sought out.
Did it fit when you got it?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, it got great at that point.
That's what happens, man.
Yeah.
It always happens. All right. Well, I'm happy to have you guys with us. We got 500 in here already. If you haven't done so yet, need I even say it? Hit that thumbs up. Get us over. We got 43 likes. So we're at like a sub 10% viewer to likes ratio. Atone for your sins, friends. Appease the YouTube overlords, and let's get that number up through the roof. Also, you like this stuff, subscribe to the channel. And if you want, hit that subscribe button down there, or the join button to get the free super chats each month, the custom emoji. You'll see those super chats rolling in. It'll be like 11 months, 18 months, 5 months. I don't know. Get the badges. You see them in there already. And we'll be doing some cool stuff for all of our members here on the channel as well. All right. We're about to rip above 100 likes. That's a good sign heading into tonight's slate, Neil.
Yeah. Really good sign. Keep it going, guys. Let's win some money tonight.
Let's do it. Austin Moore, fly Eagles fly. Love it, man.
Get out of
$10
here.
super chat just to say that. Appreciate you. It's going to be close. Eagles laying 3 at home. 2 high-powered offenses.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a really fun game.
Going to be a really fun game. Very fun. Hey, thanks to Claw. That's a nice thing to say. All right, Neil. So we got 2 games. We got Tennessee, Buffalo. Hey, Manny C. See, team member, 18 months. Like this, I'm the Nostradamus of Stokastic. Much love. God, Eagles. I'm assuming he meant go Eagles. Now they're the furthest thing from God, but yes, go Eagles.
I'm glad we've got Lindquist in the chat representing the Vikings.
Oh yeah, I bodied him on Twitter the other day.
I hear that it's Eric's birthday today, so we got.
Yes, it is. Happy birthday!
The Vikings have to win for Eric Lindquist. Happy birthday, Eric.
Birthday, Lindy. That's right. Thank you, Neil. How old is he? 30. I'm going to say 30.
I heard that he was 40 the last time, so I'm guessing he's 41 now.
I can see it. Right?
He's not actually 40. That was an ongoing joke one week in MLB. People were saying that happy birthday, Eric. It's your 40th birthday. This is like 3 weeks ago. So no, I would guess you're about right around 35. Okay. He says 35. He's 35.
I thought so. Yeah. 35. Eric puts in work. My guy is always working. So happy birthday, dude. Check out all his videos over at Odd Shopper, especially the MLB game by game picks. They're fire. So I would highly recommend that. And I got the picks for every game every single week. And tonight we got Monday night picks. I got that. We got a lot of people doing them over there as well. If you're looking to bet those games, let's dive into this, Neil.
Yep.
Let's do it. And we got Live Before Lock coming up next as well. So we're taking you all the way up to lock 7:15 and then 8:30 for Eagles Vikings. This Tennessee Buffalo game is an odd one to me for one reason. I mentioned this to Gajewski this morning on the strategy show. If the Titans can actually get the run game going, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, you got to establish the run. What I'm saying is their pass catching options are pretty weak with no A.J. Brown anymore. Even Kyle Phillips, who led the team in receptions and targets in week 1, is questionable. They elevated Josh Gordon from the practice squad. Robert Woods is coming off a season-ending ACL midway through the year last season. And Treylon Burks has a lot of upside, but he hasn't proven anything yet. So I don't necessarily know how this game's going to go. Even though Tennessee's a 10-point dog, I could kind of see it swinging both ways.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a 10-point spread. I think that it should be a 10-point spread. I think that it's very clearly much more likely that the Bills just rout them in this game. The Bills crushed the Rams. I guess the Rams might not be as good as they were last year. So that might have been a factor as well. But the Bills just look so good offensively, defensively. So I don't know that I'm entirely on the same page as you. Like, I think that the line is correct, but this is NFL football. It's never really that shocking to see any team beat any other team. So from that standpoint, sure, I agree with you. And maybe, yeah, they can try to establish the run. If you're going to do it with anybody, sure, Derrick Henry makes sense. Slow the game down. Give yourself better odds to win just by slowing the game down, not letting the Bills do what they want to do, which is up tempo.
I think the line's correct too. That's not what I was saying. Okay. Is that if the Tennessee Titans can't get anything going on the ground, they're going to get destroyed.
Okay, same page.
Yeah, because the Bills' passing offense, granted, Gabe Davis is questionable, so that'll play pretty heavily into our decision making. But let's kick it off with Tennessee then. On the ground, we have to start with Derrick Henry. He's $7,800 on DraftKings, which puts him $200 south of Dalvin Cook. I think that's important if we're talking about building lineups, because on FanDuel, he's $8,800, which is $600 more than Dalvin Cook.
Really interesting to see Derrick Henry coming in at 16% lower ownership than Dalvin Cook at just $200 cheaper. Definitely makes me more interested in Derrick Henry. Obviously, it's a tough matchup with the Bills, but Derrick Henry can run on anybody. So I'm definitely going to have some interest in Derrick Henry as a pay up option, just because he's not getting the same kind of ownership that we're seeing on other pay up options. So yeah, I'm with you. I like him a lot today.
I guess the only issue I have is, so in the passing game, Dontrell Hilliard's out, and Matt made some good points about this on our morning show. Dontrell Hilliard's out. I know one of the reasons that we've seen Derrick Henry not used in the passing game over the years isn't because he's not, semi-capable, but it's because he's getting sometimes 28, 30 carries a game, and you're just trying to keep him rested for, when he's out there getting 10 carries in a drive. I still don't think they look to use him in the passing game much today, but I don't know who else it would be. I mean, Haskins is a big body back. He's not a whole lot different than Henry. And then you're looking at like a Julius Chestnut. Are there any other running backs in this offense right now with Hilliard out who only ran like 13 routes, but had actually less than that? I think he ran 6 routes and had 3 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So super outlier game. Are there any other running backs not named Derrick Henry in Tennessee worth targeting on a 2-game slate?
I think I'll probably be playing some Hassan Haskins just because Hilliard is out. If Hassan Haskins can kind of slip into that role, maybe he's worth playing. He's 4,200. He'll allow you to make some better lineups. There aren't a lot of players below him in price tag that I would rather play. So I could see taking a shot or two on Hassan Haskins. But yeah, there's certainly no other priorities on a 2-game slate. I'd be more likely to play him more on a showdown slate, but I'm not expecting anything from Hassan Haskins. I think they're probably just going to be going more to Derrick Henry here, but I'll take a few shots out of 150 on a 2-game slate. I'm willing to eat that 0, which is probably the likeliest outcome, or at least, sub 4 fantasy points is the likeliest outcome for Hassan Haskins, but I'm willing to eat it at 0 ownership. I'm willing to just kind of throw those lineups away.
Well, how much would you be comfortable with for someone that might be playing, maxing out the milli or even, maxing out like a dollar entry or even a quarter entry, whatever their bank or whatever their limits are? How much would you be comfortable going to someone like Haskins?
Maybe like 8 or 9%, probably okay. Nothing more than that. And that's on the high end. Like I'm not necessarily recommending that. I sometimes play these weird guys and just hope for, very strange outcomes. I'll be playing him in showdown for sure. At 4,200, he's not at, the basement floor price. And there are a few other options. The one thing I will say about this slate is there aren't that many running backs that I really love on the slate. So that kind of is a point in his favor, but probably still not more than I probably still won't get up to 10%.
Okay. Yeah. Truly, most of the highest owned value plays right now, outside of, I'm not talking about, defenses, but it's going to be like cheap Bills receivers or a Devonta Smith. Those seem like the 30+% guys that we're really looking at. Haskins is going to have no ownership at all. So, like you said, in the event that he actually finds the end zone or has a decent game, or is actually the pass catching back and sees 4 targets or so, getting over you'd get over the field, you double the field with him at 6% exposure.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I just look at these other running backs around him from other teams. I'd rather go to Boston Scott than Hassan Haskins. Personally, I think Boston Scott is more likely to put up a score. I might even rather go to James Cook. I don't know. There's just so many other options that he's certainly not a priority for me, but he is presumably the primary backup. He should have a few opportunities. So I don't think it's crazy getting up to around 8 or 9%. And like you said, you're well over the field at that number.
What are you drinking?
This is a juicy, hazy IPA Voodoo Ranger.
Okay. Oh, I know Voodoo Ranger. We got them around here.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever, at your age, how old are you now?
39.
Okay. Have you ever maybe intentionally or unintentionally overindulged with hazy IPAs?
With hazy IPAs in particular, I mean, probably, but I can't remember any specific instances.
You would, because the hazy IPA hangover is the worst thing known to man. I'm telling you right now. I made that mistake at a brewery a few weeks ago, and the next day I was more miserable than I could ever imagine. They're delicious, but I will not make that mistake again.
Thank you for warning me. I think this is, I believe, the last one in my fridge, luckily. So I wasn't going to make that mistake anyway, but it's good to know going forward.
Yeah. Okay. I'm telling you, man, it was death. I'd rather have a whiskey hangover than a hazy IPA. Jordan probably knows. Jordan's versed in all hangovers, but something about those hazies that just destroy me the next day. All right. Pass catching options, and we can mix Ryan Tannehill into this as well. You have two, in my opinion, you have probably three tiers of quarterbacks, even though we only have 4 quarterbacks today. This is my take, but I think it's Allen and Hurts at the top tier. Both have rushing upside. Allen's just a murderer out there. And then you have Kirk Cousins, and then tier 3, and I'd say a pretty distant tier 3, especially given his pass catching options, would be Ryan Tannehill. Would you agree?
I think that's a fair assessment of the tiers for these quarterbacks. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
How do you want to target the pass catchers when you have Woods, Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips is questionable? We have to pay close attention to that. And then essentially nobody else that really stands out in the big way. If I were to just give you the route participation last week, it was Woods 26, Hooper 23, Westbrook-Akina 22, Kyle Phillips 21, Swaim 15, Treylon Burks 13, Derrick Henry actually had 14, but you get the point.
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious one is Robert Woods, but he's coming in at 16.2% ownership. At 4,400, I'm going to be playing plenty of Robert Woods. I could see myself getting above the field there. I really like that. I have some interest in Treylon Burks, just at 5.9% ownership at 4,200. Because he's a rookie, I don't think that necessarily it's going to be static. His routes run could be going up each game. All the accounts where he looked lost in the preseason. He has another week now to kind of get it figured out. We can hope another week and a day to get it figured out. So I'm willing to take shots when nobody else is playing him. And if he's going to be 5.9% owned at 4,200, even if he looks lost, we know that once he has the ball, he can make plays. So at 4,200, he doesn't need to make that many plays. So I think that I do have a lot of interest in Treylon Burks at 4,200. Nick Westbrook-Akine at 3,900. 8.6% projected ownership. I have some interest there. I think I have more interest in Burks at the slightly higher price tag, but lower ownership. But Westbrook-Akine is right there as well. As you said, we'll have to kind of wait and see with Kyle Phillips. He's obviously at 3,600. If he's playing, he's going to look great. They're all pretty good value options, I guess I would say. Do we think Josh Gordon is going to play? Wasn't he called up from the practice squad?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it has something to do with the potential that Kyle Phillips doesn't play, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I still don't really want to play Josh Gordon.
I don't think I do either. Even if he is active, I mean, he's still, I've fallen into that trap enough times at this point, I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we should have some concerns if Josh Gordon didn't make a team and you look at the receivers on the active roster.
Yeah.
It's not like he didn't make a team with, three quality wide receivers. He got beat out by guys that wouldn't be on an active roster or wouldn't be starting for sure on a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I think I don't think I'm playing Josh Gordon today, I guess is the bottom line. Even if he is active, I'm probably not playing Josh Gordon. These other guys are low enough owned that I think you can get different playing them. Got
to be honest. This is something that could destroy me, but I'm really interested in Treylon Burks.
Love it. All right. Same page.
Yeah, man. He's getting virtually zero ownership in our projections right now. By the way, if you're a Stokastic Plus subscriber, the ownership is under early slate because we don't have a tab for 2-game Monday slate. So it's under early if you had trouble finding it, and you can find projections where they always are. If you want 3 days for free, everything on the site for NFL, Stokastic Plus NFL Platinum, every single thing entirely free. Jordan can throw the link in chat right now. It's already in the description. No strings attached, nothing. You sign up, you get your first day's free. You want to check it out 3 days without paying a cent. I know plenty of you probably have been burned by other sites before, and you're like, yeah, I won't make that mistake again. Well, you don't have to pay anything if you want to check this out. Get a look behind the curtain and check out all of our tools for tonight if you'd like to do that as well, and follow along. So all of that totally free if you use those links. But back to Treylon Burks, and then we can move over to this Bills side. Unless you want to, we can talk tight ends if you want. He only ran 13 routes last game. Obviously, that's not what you're looking for. And he was only on the field for 37% of snaps, but he's a rookie. And we've seen a lot of rookies that end up being really good, start the season a little bit slow, get, kind of acclimated in the offense and start seeing more opportunities. What stood out to me though, is if you only ran 13 routes, but you were targeted on 5% or 5 of those 13 routes, Tannehill clearly looked his way. Also, 2-game slate, Tannehill targeted or had through 4 deep attempts last game against the Giants, which is, 20 plus yards downfield. 2 of those deep attempts went to Treylon Burks. So I think there is a ceiling here. The floor is probably 0 with Treylon Burks, right? But I do think there's a ceiling. I like over 15.5 longest reception as well. But for right now, Treylon Burks, I think there's enough positive signs for a 2-gamer, Neil, and the ownership and the price point to suggest that he could be one of those plays that could make a big difference tonight. And to be clear, we're talking about a large field GPP. Yes. We're not talking about throwing Treylon Burks in your cash lineup. But yeah, in a large field GPP, we're on the exact same page. Treylon Burks is just, we don't know how they're going to want to use him going forward. What we do know is that he has been a dynamic playmaker in the past, and we know that he's a rookie. They could easily double his snap count, triple his snap count. It wouldn't be a big surprise. He's a good player. I think he's still getting acclimated to the offense, but 8 days later, who knows how acclimated he is at this point. So I love taking shots there at low ownership. Any other thoughts on the Titans? Yeah, I mean, Jeff Swaim is 2,800. Maybe you can play some Jeff Swaim. He was active on, 45 snaps last week, only a 9% target share. So not targeted a ton, but he was out there a ton. So maybe he gets that one-off touchdown and it's worth playing. Not a huge endorsement there, but I'll have some Jeff Swaim in my portfolio as well. All right. Let's talk about Buffalo laying 10 points, 47.5 point total in this game. I'm close. We should get very shortly the Gabe Davis news, unless we already got it. And we got the news that he is unlikely to play. Not expected. Okay. Yeah. So the report last night as well was that he's closer to doubtful than questionable. So that would make sense. All right. Not expected to play. Well, that changes a lot because he would have been a good play, first of all, but now you've got Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder. Obviously, both of those guys are sharing snaps at the slot role, but you might see that change. And then also, now you're talking about Khalil Shakir, whose minimum salary probably gets some reps in this game now that Gabe Davis isn't expected to play. Yeah, I would assume he's going to be active. We thought he was going to be active last week, and then he was just a surprise inactive. But I think with Gabe Davis out, he's likely to be active, and he was great in the preseason. So I love the Khalil Shakir call as well. It's fun to
give little boost to every different Buffalo pass catcher. I think all of them stand to benefit in one way or another. And Khalil Shakur, currently we haven't projected for 0% ownership. He's obviously not going to be 0% owned. Once we actually have the news and Gabe Davis is ruled out and Shakur is active, he will have some ownership, but I still would expect it to be low. Not a lot of people pay attention to preseason. He wasn't active last week, so people are not going to probably want to play a lot of Khalil Shakur, and I think he is definitely going to be worth some shots with Josh Allen passing him the ball.
Minimum salary. And
yeah.
Another, Neil, look at how many, for a 2-game slate, look at how many really good players there are on this slate. That Jefferson, Cook, Allen.
It's a stud slate. Yep.
Yeah. Henry, Diggs, Hurts, AJ Brown. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 players on a 2-game slate north of $7K on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's a fun slate because there are so many different studs. So these players that are minimum salary and not expected to do much can really make a big difference. Like if they just have a decent game, a single touchdown for one of these low price guys, 9 fantasy points might be enough that they will be optimal because they allow you to play more of those studs. And there's so many studs that look good in this game. So yeah, I'm a fan of that call.
All right. Outside of that, you have Stefon Diggs. We just talked about it. And yeah, 7 guys north of 8K on FanDuel. So same thing over there. Stefon Diggs without Gabe Davis in this spot, 10-point favorites. And we will talk about Buffalo's run game as well. But Stefon Diggs, what is Gabe Davis's absence do for you? And is he a priority on the slate?
I mean, he's always a priority. He's Stefon Diggs. I don't think Gabe Davis's absence does as much for Stefon Diggs in my mind as it does for the secondary and tertiary receivers. I think that
Diggs is going to get his anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Diggs was already the alpha. So Gabe Davis, who's moving around behind him, doesn't matter as much for Diggs as it does for Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder, Khalil Shakur, obviously. So it doesn't really change the outlook for me for Diggs a ton. I don't love the ownership on Diggs. 55% projected ownership. I can't currently pull up our boom bust tool. I don't know if that's if it's coming or if that's an issue, but so I can't see where we have him in our simulations where he would end up. But my guess would be he has to come in lower than that. He can't be 55% optimal in our sims. So my thinking is I'm going to be under the field on Stefon Diggs and playing some more of these secondary, tertiary options and getting a little bit different there. I'm still going to play plenty of Stefon Diggs, but I might try to get to closer to 40% if the field's going to be at 55%. Come in a little bit under.
That's very high.
Yeah.
Especially because there's so many other really good players.
I guess it's the price. I mean, he is projected identically to Justin Jefferson at $1,500 less. So I guess that is why that's happening, why people are going to be playing so much Diggs. But I would rather get away from it a little bit because we've seen Diggs have bad games. He's not a guy he's not Cooper Kupp where you can count on 25 fantasy points every game. He has dud games from time to time. So I'm perfectly, if he's going to be 55% owned, I'm perfectly happy getting away from that a bit.
And yeah, exactly. One of the things too is this offense is so good that they can score points with Dawson Knox and McKenzie and other players. Diggs is still the alpha. He's still the number one clear cut option, top option, especially with Gabe Davis out. You could see a couple more funneled to him, but I agree that price point is driving ownership up a ton. I wonder if it comes up higher now that Gabe Davis is out.
I would imagine it will. I mean,
it just updated actually 44 seconds ago.
Okay.
Let me just see if Gabe Davis is out of this.
Okay. Yeah,
sometimes we'll run it before the news. Yeah, Gabe Davis is out of this.
Officially inactive. Okay, good.
We got him at 54.
Yep. So that has not changed. We already did have Gabe Davis with a 0 projection. So I think we were already kind of factoring it in.
You think Scott Kumaro could be, Jake Kumaro. You think Jake Kumaro could be an option today?
I do. I like that call. I had not even thought about Kumaro, but yeah, he's actually a great call there. We have projected 4.77 fantasy points. That's higher than Khalil Shakur. If Shakur is not active, then I think Jake Kumaro will be a great play. Even if he is active, I think Kumaro is probably actually the higher probability play than Khalil Shakir, but maybe Khalil Shakir will be a little bit lower owned and probably have as much of, or maybe even higher upside than Jake Kumaro. So they will both definitely be in play for me today, assuming they're both active.
My biggest spot to watch in this game, it really is Derrick Henry, to see if without an AJ Brown, without a quality pass catching option, will they be able to get him going? And still, we haven't seen much. We've seen what, 2 games off of that foot injury.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, I feel like they are incentivized to run the ball, right? Because they are such huge underdogs. They're going up against this Buffalo offense. They can just slow the game down by rushing it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them run Henry into the ground. So I kind of like playing some Henry today.
I like him too. I don't know what Henry we're going to see.
I know. Yeah.
It's a huge question mark for this slate, I think. And obviously going to have big implications, because if you're playing Henry, it means you're not playing one of the other, top tier options. How many of the top tier options do you think you can comfortably fit into lineups? Into
a single lineup?
Yeah. Like if you're no one specific, but among the Jefferson, Cooks, I won't even consider Hurts and Allen, but do you think you can get 3 of the top skill players into lineups relatively easily?
Yes. I mean, especially if you're getting away. I just ran a quick crunch just to see what would come up. And I'm seeing in the first crunch I run, I've got, it has Josh Allen in it. So he's a pay up quarterback. If you get away from the pay up quarterback, even more, but I already have Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, all in my first crunch. And that's along with Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith. So pretty good secondary players as well. This lineup actually looks great with Josh Allen in at quarterback. And you throw in a Ryan Tannehill in there, and I imagine you can play even more of those pay up options. So I think you can actually play a number per lineup today.
Yeah, I think you're right. I wonder the only question I have is how common are these lineups going to be that have 3 of the top studs in them, where everyone just ends up going to, a Shakir and then maybe an Isaiah McKenzie and a Devontae Smith or whatever, or the cheap tight end.
Yep. And that is a concern on a 2-game slate. You do need to be concerned somewhat, at least less so than Showdown, but you should be concerned about being duplicated. That is a way to lose some expected value on your lineups. So I would consider leaving some salary on the table in your lineups. I think I actually probably will set a salary cap for myself today. I'm not going to set it super low, but I'll expect all my lineups to leave at least like 400 on the table.
And that could be very unique, just given how many studs there are.
Exactly. And there's a lot of plays that you like to play at the minimum. There's plays you like to play at all the different salaries. And it's really easy to fill in a full salary cap with these plays today. So just to leave a little bit of salary on the table is a way to get unique.
Anything else for Buffalo's pass catchers that you want to talk about? Dawson Knox or anyone we haven't gotten to?
Yeah, so we talked about Isaiah McKenzie is, I think, the most obvious beneficiary from Gabe Davis being out. He should be the wide receiver 2 at this point. Jamison Crowder, we didn't really talk about. I like Jamison Crowder as well. I think he was used more than I expected last week, and he looked pretty good. We've got him at 19% projected ownership right now. He might have a bigger role, and he's been a talented player for a long time. So I think I have some interest in Jamison Crowder. We mentioned both Shakir and Kumaro as kind of off the wall plays that not a lot of people are getting to. And then, Dawson Knox is a great mention. 41% ownership. I did not see that coming with Dawson Knox, but the price tag is clearly too low, right? Like he is probably the top. Yeah. I guess he's projected a little bit behind Dallas Goedert, but man, that 4,000 price tag for a player like Dawson Knox, who has spike weeks. We've seen him have some huge spike weeks. I'm going to have some interest in Dawson Knox against this Tennessee defense as well. At 41% ownership, I'm probably not going to be matching the field, but I'm going to have some interest there for sure.
I'll be honest. Dawson Knox at a $700 discount from Dallas Goedert, to me, seems like the better play.
Yeah, so I was thinking that I'm actually looking at our projections, and I was surprised to see Dallas Goedert is projected for like 2.7 fantasy points higher.
That's a lot.
Dawson, I know. I did not expect the difference in projection to be that drastic. And Dallas Goedert is also getting 40.5% ownership. So those two are both just getting a ton of ownership. And I think that I'll probably eat it largely. I'll probably get close to the field in both spots, but I'll probably throw out some of these under-owned guys as well.
All right. So last week we'll wrap the Bills up with this. Then we'll shout out some of our friends here for the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Always a fun segment. last week we saw Devin Singletary get 59% of snaps. This was the season opener, Thursday Night Football. Zach Moss was involved, though. He was targeted 6 times. I don't really anticipate that being sustainable going forward, but there's no doubt that he was used. James Cook came in and fumbled and then finished with negative fantasy points and didn't return. But I think Devin Singletary is still the top option, but I worry that touchdowns are going to be a lot harder to come by if Zach Moss is involved. Josh Allen can still always grab a touchdown or two himself as a rushing it in. It's an uncomfortable backfield, even on a 2-game slate, but you don't have a ton of options here at running back outside of the top 2 guys.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable backfield that I will be going to. I think all 3 parts of it. I think Devin Singletary, I would expect to be obviously still the most involved. I'm actually surprised to see that Zach Moss was only played 22 snaps last week, because it felt like they were splitting it almost evenly. Like Zach Moss, once he got out there, he was just carrying the ball. They were dumping it to him. He was so involved last week. I'm happy to go back to Zach Moss as well and just kind of see how it plays out. And even James Cook, do you think he would have played more than 3 snaps if not for fumbling it on his very first NFL snap?
I do. I don't know how much more, because it was, Singletary got the whole first drive. Moss got the whole second drive, I believe. So it looked like they were going to dominate opportunities, but I think Cook probably, had he not fumbled, would have gotten a little bit more work. Yeah, it stands to reason that didn't help him.
Yeah, and he can catch the ball a little bit. So I have some interest in James Cook. I feel like at their respective ownership. So we currently have Devin Singletary projected for about 39% ownership, Zach Moss at 29%. I'm more likely, I think, to go overweight to Singletary and underweight to Moss, because I think it's more likely than not that the game last week was an outlier. So with these ownerships coming in that close together, I'd rather take more shots, I think, on Devin Singletary, but I don't know. It's not a strong take for me. I don't have a strong read on how this backfield is going to go, but I'm just going to play on the lack of knowledge here, the lack of clarity with this backfield. And if James Cook is going to get no ownership, which is what we project him for, and he's 4,000, I'm going to be taking some shots on James Cook.
All right. Hall of Fame, baby. I feel like we might see one Neil Orfield in here in the Hall of Fame after taking down a showdown slate. And some of you guys as well. If you want to get involved, you want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame here over at Stokastic, and you want a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, not just NFL, literally every sport. It's a massive value. All you have to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar. Download that avatar, use it on DraftKings FanDuel, No House Advantage, wherever it is you feel comfortable, wherever it is you like to play, Yahoo, doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet us at Stokastic HOF with your screenshot with your win. That's all you got to do. Free month of awesome or Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, which in itself is great. Plus, even if it's like a 25-cent entry, doesn't matter. Top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more is all you need. Rep the avatar, get inducted, get a free month. Matt Gajewski, our boy, the college football master, as Neil knows, the preseason pioneer. Yeah, this guy knows what's up. $5,000, taking it down, first place, college football world championship. I guess that was a Q. I guess that was a qualifier. Was that a qualifier?
Yeah, it was a qualifier for the world championship. So that's pretty fun.
Awesome. And then Harrison, as always, Matt Gajewski, yes, best in the business. If you're ever in town, I owe you a beer. Dr. 2-inch. That's just, you know what, man? I guess embrace it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
2 inches,
Be
but
yourself.
600.
Be proud. Be proud of who you are.
Yes, 2 inches, but $600 richer. I guess it could be worse. Anyway, congrats, man. Pete Rogers, our over on the MMA side, does killer content. 1564 right there with the little showdown action on Sunday night. Then you got Cubs win with 1,400. You know who that is? That's Jordan Frank. Frank. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was over at No House Advantage. He was in first place until that last Herbert touchdown. And then this guy, Neil Orfield. Heard of him? Said I published an article for Stokastic the other day about how to attack single game slates like a pro so that you win big. The article is about DK, but same logic generally applies. Nothing quite like showdown season. $92,000. Congrats, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm doing showdown content every Monday and Thursday. So check that out.
Love it. And Ship My Money, our boy Adam Scher, MLB. I mean, if you're not using these tools, and if you're not watching the YouTube video, what are you doing? Look at all these names. Ship My Money, 20K. You guys have all been inducted. Welcome back. If you've been here before, download that avatar, rep it. Let's keep it going here. Neil, let's talk about your Minnesota Vikings.
Let's do it.
At Lincoln Financial Field, little Monday Night Football, where Kirk Cousins has struggled historically, but doesn't really matter. I try not to put too much stock in that. What I do know is that Justin Jefferson is maybe the best receiver in the league. Dalvin Cook is amazing. And Adam Thielen, while he does quiet down from time to time, still had 14 touchdowns in Jefferson's rookie season and 10 last year, despite missing 4 games at the end of the year. So a lot of weapons here, a lot of power, a lot of touchdown equity in these guys as well.
You're leaving out kind of the one that we should talk about the most, though, I think, which is new receiver Jalen Reagor coming for some revenge against these Eagles tonight. How much would it kill? I would love it so much if Jalen Reagor just has this one game. He has 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just watch Mike Lawrence die inside a little bit.
That would not be good. Does that
I don't mean
special
Mike,
team,
by the way.
Does that special team coach have Reagor locked in his basement, chained up yet?
Probably.
Did you see?
I can imagine.
Did you see those tweets or did you see his post or his press conference about Reagor?
Oh, about the his legs and how meaty he is, and just loves looking at his groin. And
great. Yeah. That guy's got some great quads. Just love looking. Oh yeah,
I forgot about that.
Oh man, If I'm Reagor, I'd be nervous. But anyway, Justin Jefferson's expensive. I'll tell you what though, I don't see any reason not to play Jefferson. I don't see any reason not to play Dalvin Cook. I'm not saying you play all 3 of these guys I'm mentioning here and the same lineups and everything. But even Adam Thielen, I think that price is too cheap for a guy that we know has 2 touchdown upside any day of the week. And that Phillies defense, while Jonathan Gannon hopefully made some adjustments, they got gutted by the Lions in week 1.
Yeah, no, I like playing all of them. You can obviously play all of Jefferson and Thielen. And then I'd throw KJ Osborne in there as well as a guy who I have some interest in. But yeah, we can start talking about Jefferson. He's coming in lower owned than Stephon Diggs. They have the same projection currently, and Jefferson is $1,500 more expensive on DraftKings. So it doesn't surprise me to see him coming in a little bit lower owned. I would kind of hope that his projection would come in even lower than this, but honestly, his projected ownership, I should say, after the week he had last week, he's probably going to be, people are going to want to play Justin Jefferson. They just remember the last week. So Justin Jefferson is going to have a ton of ownership, and I have no problem with it. I mean, Justin Jefferson is elite. They said all offseason the Vikings want to pass the ball more this year, and they did it in week 1. So yeah, I think Justin Jefferson, the ownership is probably close to where it should be. Adam Thielen, 38% projected ownership, but he's 5,300. Obviously a solid play if you can fit him in your lineup, especially if you can still leave a little bit of salary on the table. I love playing Thielen. KJ Osborne at 21% projected ownership. Let me look up his snaps last week. I thought I had this open. Maybe I don't have my my Vikings snap counts open, but let me check that out real quick. But he's pretty involved. He's the expected wide receiver 3 for the Vikings, and he's a very talented player. So I have interest in all of the Vikings pass catchers. And honestly, you brought up maybe not playing them all in the same lineup, but on a 2-game slate, I feel like you can get unique by doing full onslaught. So I don't know.
I just mean you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Go ahead. Go, because I like this line of thinking.
Yeah. So what do you think of the idea of just playing all of the expensive Vikings? So Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, Cousins. I guess that's all. That's really all of the expensive guys. You throw in Osborne in there. What do you think of playing 6 Vikings in one lineup?
6?
Yeah.
So
and the expensive ones. Yeah.
Let me think. So Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne, and like
maybe Vikings D.
And Vikings D.
Yeah. It's ugly, right? You don't want to do it.
Well, let me ask you, because you know more about these short slates than I do. Is there too much downside given that there's so many other top tier plays on this slate, or could it still work out?
I think it is a very low probability play. I think that it's a higher probability play than the number of people who will do it. So I kind of like doing it in some lineups. It's probably not the first lineup that I would build. I would rather build a more balanced lineup, but I think so would everybody. I think that's you think about that and it's like, well, why would I, if I'm going to play that lineup, why not just sub out Cook for Derrick Henry, because he's, cheaper, is $200 cheaper.
Yeah.
And he doesn't take away from what Jefferson's doing. Like there's obviously negative correlation, but we've seen it happen before. I think it was actually the Bills last year had a 6-player onslaught on a 2-game slate that worked out.
I remember that.
Yeah. And you never want to do it. It's so ugly. It doesn't seem like it should work out. Like, how can all of these players have big games? But in the right game script, you're scoring quickly. It can work out. So I don't entirely hate playing 6 Vikings in the same lineup. Antoine Murphy says the Vikings team is different. It is different than the Bills team, but it's also a high-powered offense that can put up points in a hurry. So I'm still willing to do it. I'm not going to do it in a ton of lineups, but I think that it is a way to get a little bit unique.
Absolutely. Look, I get it. Would you apply that same logic to other teams on this slate?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it applies to probably not the Titans. I'm probably not playing 6 Titans unless that's like the only way to get all the other pay up options, but I don't think it is. I'm probably not playing 6 Titans. You can certainly do it with the Bills. I mean, we've seen it before. And with Gabe Davis out now, we've got a lot of cheap Bills options as well. And the Eagles, I think, is another one that I have interest in. Several different players on the Eagles at different positions. So I think you could do it. 3 of the 4 teams on this slate, I would consider doing full onslaughts.
Would you run back with someone? Or are you not prioritizing that? Like, if it happens, it happens.
If it happens, it happens.
Okay. All right. And if you guys are already on DraftKings FanDuel, whatever, and you're looking for free money, also actually looking to be smarter bettors, because when you have accounts on different books, like with Odd Shopper, Neil and I always talk about Odd Shopper. You go over there, you shop the odds, and you can see which book has the best lines. What a difference that makes. Even getting a half point in some of these games, or 20 cents on a money line, can make all the difference in the world over the course of the season. If you're looking for free money, but you also want to have an account where you can say, all right, I'm on DraftKings, I'm on FanDuel, I should have a 3rd or 4th book, and they're going to give me $200. Well, go to BetMGM. First of all, Jordan, can you throw the link in chat for anyone watching? Usually we have questions and then we don't ever put it in. Okay. Thank you. And it's in the description as well. If you want, all you do, use the link in the description or the pinned comment. All you have to do is take $10, right? Deposit $10, take that $10, put it on any team to win tonight. Got to bet the money line. So my suggestion would be, not the Bills. You want to go crazy, you take the Titans, or really the Eagles or the Vikings, whoever you like. If you win, you get the money on your bet. You also get $200 in free bets immediately right after that, whether you win or lose. You could go on a horrible run after you get this $200 and you could lose everything and you're still only down $10. If you win a lot of money and go on a heater after getting these free bets, now you've got a 3rd book to shop odds with, to really take advantage of everything across the board every week for not just football, but basketball, baseball, and you're swimming in it. So take advantage of it. No idea how long it's going to be here for. Use the link, deposit $10, make your first bet a money line on any team tonight, and you get $200 in free bets to take advantage of. All right. Dalvin Cook, I don't think we have any arguments here, right? Just very good play.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook is a very good play. These are the Eagles are a little bit of a rush funnel defense. Would you agree with that, Laffy? I was looking at DVOA data. Looks like they're a little bit of a rush funnel.
It's so hard for me to say. They should be. They should be, right? I mean, you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson they just brought over. They have Darius Slay. Bradbury might not be the same as he was, but he should still be decent. They should have a good secondary. Linebacking core has always been a bit of an issue, but they improved that as well. The biggest question is, how much do they use Jordan Davis today? This guy, look him up, Neil. Monster. He's huge. If you're not familiar with how big he is, he's a monster. And they drafted him in the 1st round this year. He's not the type of guy that can play every down, but he's super athletic for his size. He's a phenomenal run stopper. And last week when he was in ahead of Fletcher Cox, the Vikings or the Lions averaged like 2 yards per carry compared to 9 yards per attempt or whatever it was when Jordan Davis was off. So I think, yes, they are, but I also don't know what the personnel is going to look like, how often they use him. And I do think that makes a difference today.
This guy is enormous. Yeah, I'm looking at him right now.
He's huge.
I want to come like a Boban of the NFL, but I guess Boban is actually capable of playing full minutes. He just isn't good enough to play full minutes on defense.
Yeah, exactly. He's so big that people think defensively that's a good thing, but it's really not when you can just walk around him.
Right. Yeah, but that is an enormous dude.
He's huge.
Yeah. But yeah, I think regardless of how much he plays, probably better if he's not out there, but Dalvin Cook is going to be an interesting play at 8,000. He is the highest projected running back. He's projected for nearly a fantasy point more than Derrick Henry. He's a little bit more expensive though. He's also getting 52% projected ownership, which is massive ownership for a guy for any player, not a guy like for any player on the slate. 52% ownership is a little bit higher than I am likely to get to for any position player. But certainly he's Dalvin Cook. He can put up 100 yards and 2 touchdowns any given game. So yeah, I don't know. We don't really need to delve into no pun intended. We don't need to delve into Dalvin Cook. He's a great play. If you can fit him in your lineup, I think it makes some sense to do so. But also, maybe if you want to get a little bit more unique, Derrick Henry is lower owned.
All right, we got about 11 minutes to go, so I'm going to just rapid fire here.
Sure.
Alexander Madison's getting 12%, but he's $5,600. Seem odd to you?
Is he getting? I'm seeing 7% in. Let me refresh.
Unless we just updated it again and I missed.
You're probably more updated. I haven't updated it since we started the show, so I'm going to do that. So I had him at 7%, which I definitely had interest in. Let's see.
Oh, now we definitely updated again because I updated 10 minutes ago. Now he's at 2%. That makes a lot more sense.
He's 5,600 on the main slate. So he's really interesting to me on the showdown slate at I think 4,200 on the showdown slate, which is a little bit too expensive, but you don't have that many options. 5,600. I get why he's 2%, but I suspect I'll be over the field on Alexander Madison anyway, just because he is so low owned, not because I expect him to be a great play today, because I expect Dalvin Cook to get the majority of the touches. But, Alexander Madison's a talented back. Doesn't take much for him to break one off. So if he's 2.2% on a 2-game slate, I'm probably going to take a few chances there.
All right. And then last one, Irv Smith, any interest? We'll make this quick so we can talk Philly.
Man, Irv Smith was just not on the field that much last week. He was, on the field for 19 snaps last week. He's working his way back from injury. Maybe he'll be more involved this week at 24%. I imagine I'm going to be under the field on Irv Smith. He's a talented guy. He just, we don't know how much he's going to be on the field. And it looks like everybody's assuming he's going to be a full go. If he's getting 25% projected ownership, I'd rather get away a little bit. I'll still have some shares of Irv Smith, but I think I'll probably try to get away a little bit.
All right. Love it. Let's talk Philly here. Hey, stick around. Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this. These guys put on a fantastic show. You got Matt Savoca, Matt Gajewski taking you up to lock. And thank you to all of you 2,100 people watching. We crushed 200 likes. We're well on our way to 300. Many of you atoned for your sins, and you will receive good fortune tonight. Appreciate you a lot. All right, Philly. I think a lot of this is straightforward. Jalen Hurts, we don't really need to talk much about, right? Like Jalen Hurts is just a plug and play type guy. If you want to play Jalen Hurts, you play him. His rushing upside is insane, whether it's designed or just improvised. AJ Brown was the clear top option last week. It's not even close. When you look at his target share for week 1, only Devontae Adams at 46 was higher than AJ Brown, who had a 41% target share. But Devonta Smith, who was a ghost, 0 receptions on 4 targets. I still think he's too cheap. He's a good receiver. He creates separation, and it's a 2-game slate. So I do think there's a lot of different ways you can go in this passing game. It doesn't just have to be AJ Brown, for me at least.
Let me ask you this to start, though. Would you consider running Jalen Hurts out there naked?
Yeah. They had 4 guys score rushing touchdowns last week. Kenny Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, and Boston Scott.
Yeah,
we've seen that many times before. So it's entirely possible with all of the good players on this slate. Jalen Hurts has a big rushing game, runs 2 touchdowns in. I would actually be fine running Jalen Hurts without a pass catcher and one of his running backs. I would be fine with a Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders lineup.
Yeah, no, I totally would too. In general, on full slates or on main slates, I've become more inclined to do stacks. But I think on a 2-game slate, I'm still willing to just I'm still willing to not have that correlation and just play some naked Hurts. But I agree with you. Devontae Smith, 4,500 is just too cheap of a price tag. He looks phenomenal, especially on the showdown slate where he's 5,200, I believe, just way too cheap. But 4,500 on the main slate looks phenomenal as well. He's 31% owned, so the field is recognizing that he's too cheap. But I'm still going to play a lot of Devontae Smith. And AJ Brown just looks like an absolute beast. I mean, he's what can we say? AJ Brown is one of the best receivers in the NFL. It seems Jalen Hurts is recognizing that 7,000 price tag is still reasonable for AJ Brown. So yeah, I'll love playing some AJ Brown as well. What do you think of Quez Watkins?
Quez Watkins is a boomer bust play, and on a 2-game slate, it's not the craziest notion in the world. Quez Watkins is one of those guys that we've seen rip off big plays before. Week 2 last year against San Francisco, he had a 90-yard. I think Quez Watkins had the longest reception in the league last year, and he didn't score. Yeah, and he didn't score. He didn't score on it.
How is that even possible?
I don't fucking know, Neil. Don't ask me about what goes on in Philadelphia with this team.
All right.
No, I think Quez is perfectly fine. I don't want to overload on Quez Watkins, but I think he's a perfectly reasonable play because we've seen games where Sirianni opens up with 4 straight targets to Quez Watkins. They do weird stuff in this offense, especially against good teams where they're trying to get different. It's not all that crazy.
I love offenses that do weird stuff. So yeah, sign me up for some Quez Watkins at 7% at 3,300. Would you go as far as Zach Pascal?
He played 22% of snaps last week. What did he have? 1 or 2 receptions?
I think he had 1 target, maybe no receptions. I don't remember exactly.
I think he had 1 for 7.
Okay.
I'd rather pay, even though Quez didn't have any receptions or targets last week, I'd rather have Quez Watkins because of the deep threat potential.
Yeah, and I hear that Quez Watkins, it might be getting too cute to go to Zach Pascal. I'll have more of Quez Watkins most likely. The only reason I bring up Zach Pascal is we do have a projection for him. We expect him to at least see some opportunities, and he's currently projected for 0% ownership. And on these 2-game slates, you do need to get weird. And if a guy's going to get, he's probably going to get more than 0%. I know that he will because I'm going to have some. But at 3,000, it doesn't take that much for him to pay it off. And if Zach Pascal just, a play goes strangely and he scores a touchdown, he might be optimal. So I think I'm going to take a few shots on Zach Pascal as well as I'll have more shots on Quez Watkins.
We talked about Goddard. I think you and I are kind of in lockstep in the sense that we were surprised his projection was that much higher than Dawson Knox, but at Stokastic, we do have him projected higher and we do have him as a better overall play. I think he's fine because tight end's just such a bad position today. Once you get below Goddard and Knox, it's a barren wasteland for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's the main point we can make about tight end stay is nobody looks great. We could have no tight end put up more than 5 fantasy points. It would not be shocking. Probably somebody will, but it wouldn't be that shocking to see nobody put up 5 points, in which case, even the cheap value, the Jack Stoles of the world, who has virtually no projection, becomes viable if none of the other tight ends put up more than 5 fantasy points, and he allows you to get some weird plays. We saw Tommy Sweeney was ruled out. I don't know if that affects Dawson Knox at all. I should pull up my Buffalo Bills. How much did Sweeney even play last week? I don't think he did. So actually doesn't really affect anything. But I guess maybe makes Knox a little bit safer. I don't think it matters. I don't really know what else to say about the tight ends. They all look ugly. We have Dallas Goedert projected for nearly 3 fantasy points more than Dawson Knox and not getting a ton more ownership at $700 more. So it does make me a little bit more inclined to go to Dallas Goedert, but honestly, not a strong take on any of these guys. They all seem to be getting around the ownership that they should, except for, I would say, I do think that Irv Smith is going a little bit over-owned. I would rather take more shots elsewhere.
All right. I still have no issues with Sanders this week. Got the monkey off his back with a touchdown. He had 3 carries inside the 10 last week. Very encouraging stuff.
Yeah.
There's always that concern that there's all these other backs and mouths to feed, but it's a 2-game slate. He's 5,500. He had 13 carries. He had 15 total touches. He ran 18 routes, which was almost twice as many as Kenneth Gainwell. I think Kenneth Gainwell's totally fine as well. I really have no issues with that because Gainwell does get opportunities towards the goal line. He will get pass catching opportunities around there, and he'll probably see 8 or 9 total touches. I'd say around 8. But Sanders is still, if he's healthy, he is still the guy there. It's just not the guy in the sense that Leonard Fournette or Derrick Henry is in Tennessee, or Tampa Bay. So I like that. Quickly, Neil, just so we can build a lineup here. Okay. And I want to give our top no house advantage picks as well. I know we both got one we really like. And then we'll turn it over to live before lock. Also, Eitan Shander going live on playback, baby. If you guys want to do a watch along, hang out with our boy and some guests along the way. Check it out all game long. I don't know if he's doing both, but I know he'll be there for the Eagles. He'll probably be there for the Bills. The guy's always working and hanging out. But Philadelphia backfield.
Yeah, so I'm totally with you on Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is 5,500 and Alexander Madison is 5,600. That is strange. That's a misprice. Miles Sanders should be priced
Agreed.
higher than Alexander Madison. He is the RB1 for the Eagles. The only reason to play Madison is the lack of ownership there, but I love Miles Sanders. Like, that price tag is just great for Miles Sanders. The Vikings have a little bit of a run funnel defense. So I do have some interest in Miles Sanders. Totally with you on Kenneth Gainwell. He should have some opportunities. He's only getting 14% projected ownership at 4,500. Certainly some interest there. I might even throw a few darts at Boston Scott. Am I getting too cute there? What do you think?
No, if you're throwing a couple darts at Boston, he scored last week.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. He's 4,200, scored last week.
They used him on a 4th and 1. So,
yeah, right.
So Nick clearly has no problem with him. All right, let's close out real quick. Favorite no house advantage prop today. I know I have one. I know you have one.
Yep. So for me, it would be the under on Jalen Hurts, 246.5 passing yards. I think the Vikings are a run funnel defense. They're going to be rushing it more. We have Jalen Hurts projected for 225 passing yards. So the easy under for me on Jalen Hurts, under 246 passing yards.
Okay, I like that. I am going with Dawson Knox over 30 receiving yards. I like this a lot. Oh, actually, no, it's at 38. 38. I'm sorry. I still like him there. Without, as you were saying earlier, without Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs is still going to get work. Dawson Knox, who just signed a monster contract, could be the guy, and we know how comfortable Josh Allen is with him. That's a spot that I like for sure. If you haven't signed up yet at No House Advantage, right now, all you have to do is use the link that Jordan can throw in the chat. Do we have a promo for that, Jordan, or is it just a link right now? Just a link? Yeah, just use a link, get a $25 deposit bonus. The format's awesome. You're just building lineups with props, over or under. There's no juice on either side. The ones you like the most get the most points. You put them at the top of your lineup. Same thing for the ones you're least confident, they go at the bottom. I was just telling you, Jordan Frank was shipping the 10K. And they got some good prize pools over there. They've redesigned the site. Everything looks awesome. You got football, baseball, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, PGA, everything. And there's a million different ways you can play. You can also play versus the house if you want 20 extra entry if you hit all the picks and play against other people for a shot at winning 150K in cash. There's an app. There's the desktop version, however you want to do it. Just in a really good platform right now. And I feel like they're just making it better. So we also have our free No House Advantage player projections. We have the No House Advantage lineup generator, everything. So anything you need to win over there, take advantage of it. And the props are static. They don't change throughout the day. So you're getting real edge being able to take advantage of those tools. Use the link, get your $25 deposit bonus when you sign up, and get on the Hall of Fame. Ship something tonight, next week, Thursday, whatever it is. All right, real quick, Neil, because we got to get out of here. We're building a fast lineup for GPP. You go first at quarterback.
At quarterback, let's start with, I'll go with your guy. I'll go with Jalen Hurts here.
All right, if we're going Hurts, let's try to actually, we got to go fast. Let's build a lineup with a Miles Sanders and because you talked about it. Let's run him not naked, but with just Miles Sanders. Okay,
so we've got Hurts, we've got Sanders. I'm pulling up my phone so I can make this lineup. I don't see it on the screen. Let's throw in, man, how are we going to get weird here? So we're not doing a receiver for the Eagles. Can we throw in there KJ Osborne?
Okay, so we're gonna go a little cheaper here. I like that. I will throw in. I'm gonna go Derrick Henry on the other side of this one. See how he does. That gives us 5,000. We don't have a defense. 5,000 per player remaining. Who do you got next?
Okay, sorry. I want to just make sure I can see what we have going on here. All right, we're trying to get away from. Oh, let's go Treylon Burks. We like Treylon Burks.
I like
we both
that.
liked him as a really cheap guy. So let's go there.
All right, Treylon Burks. I'm going to go cheap here. I don't care what defense. I'll throw Philly D in there. I have zero faith in them, but let's throw Philly D in there and see. We still have 6,200 per player remaining for a wide receiver, a flex, and a tight end.
Yeah. So I think that it makes some sense to go to, do we want to go really cheap again? Let's just,
I don't know if we have to.
We don't have to go that cheap. I was going to say Jamison Crowder. Let's just throw in that little bit of correlation. Let's throw Devontae Smith to make more of a,
okay. I'm fine with that
here.
So if I go with Dawson Knox, that gives us 10,200 if you wanted to go with Justin Jefferson as well.
Yep.
leave some salary on the table.
I like
It's
it.
a unique lineup, right?
I think that's a good lineup.
Love it. Hey, follow Neil at Player Q DFS on Twitter, me at Lafayette_D. Stick around. Matt and Matt coming up next. Shout out to Jordan Klein. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you. We got 2,400 people watching right now. You guys are the best. Good luck tonight. Go Birds. Peace.
Skol.
What's going on? Ben Razza here for Odd Shopper, bringing you my best bet of the day. It is Monday, September 19th in the sports world. Double Monday Night Football. Only time I get to say that. So we're going to dig into these lines, try to find the spot that we think has the best chance of cashing. If you've stumbled upon Odd Shopper, if you've come back for more, welcome back. Welcome to Odd Shopper in general. We're breaking down sports, all things betting, from football to baseball, soon enough to basketball. If you want to support us, hit that like button and check out what else we have. I have a feeling you're going to want to subscribe. We hope you do. Let's grow this channel. Let's build this community. We've had so much support. We want to keep that going. Last time I saw you guys was Saturday. It was a good college football day for me, but best bet of the day did not win. I had the over in the USC game. They scored a lot of points, but Fresno got stopped multiple times on 4th down on the goal line. That is not going to get it done. So we want to bounce back here, and we're going to do just that with our pick. We have the Bet 10 Win 200. Let's talk about this Bet MGM. It is on the screen. What you want to do, use the link in the description of this video or the pinned comment. If you're looking to add $200 to your betting bankroll, if you're just getting started, or you say, you know what, I want another book and I want to take advantage of this promo, all you have to do, you sign up. You can deposit $10 and then you bet that on any money line. Got to be a money line in the NFL tonight. So Eagles money line, Vikings money line, Titans money line, Bills money line, pick one. And once either team scores a touchdown, they give you $200 paid in free bets. It's a great opportunity. I know a lot of you watching it have already done this, but for new people who may have not gone to BetMGM yet, great opportunity. And now, in addition to that, let's cash a ticket with the Philadelphia Eagles -2.5 tonight, going with the Birds at home against the Vikings. Competitive game, naturally, and that's why we see the spread under 3, but I do think that the Eagles have some of the advantages. So let's dig into these teams and talk about why. Start with the Vikings. They look good. Just dominant, 23-7 over the Packers. They were at home. They were ready. The Packers did not look ready. That's another story for another time. Justin Jefferson was the best player on the field. 9 catches, 184 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. The ground game was somewhat methodical, 28 carries for 126 yards, still 4.5 yards per carry, very respectable. Cousins was clean, no interceptions, 1 sack, just solid. It was a solid effort. Minnesota really looked good, and the Packers really didn't have a lot of answers for them. Now, a couple of things that aren't so good. They were at home. Now they hit the road where they were 3-6 last year. They still, in that dominant win, they allowed 6.2 yards per carry to the Packers. The Packers didn't have a ton of volume on the ground, but when they did run it, they were very successful. It's only 1 week, but this is an emerging trend already. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings were 31st in the league in rushing yards allowed per attempt, 4.7 yards allowed per carry. That could be a problem. Why? Because the Philadelphia Eagles don't mess around. 1-0, they won 38-35 against the Lions, which honestly, it looks better after what we saw last week. They went into Detroit and did emerge with a win, and they ran it wild. 39 carries, 216 yards, and 4 touchdowns, 4 different guys on the ground. Jalen Hurts pitched in with 90 yards rushing and a score. They've got guys all over the field that are getting carries. It is a deep back rotation, and if you can't stop the run against the Eagles, they have already shown they're more than happy to run it around 40+ times and really wear on you up front. So that's obviously how they want to attack offensively. Defensively, can they stop the Vikings? Well, that's something we're going to have to find out. They were respectable. 5.5 yards per pass attempt allowed last week. That was around the top 5 in the league. So although the Lions put up a bunch of points, the Eagles did a pretty good job of limiting that passing attack. Looking last year, they weren't good at home, the Eagles, but I always prefer my team at home. All teams historically are better at home. So we still have that, but I really think this comes down to what we've already talked about up front. The Vikings, if they have a weak spot, in my opinion, it's stopping the run. And if the Eagles have a strong suit, it is running the football. You don't see many quarterbacks unless you play the Ravens twice if you're in that division, or you're seeing Jalen Hurts. Kyler doesn't run nearly as much anymore. Like, there's not that many guys that do this. And what Jalen Hurts did in week 1, I think we're going to see that replicated here You've got Sanders and Scott, just so many backs. Gainwell. I think this could be a long night for Minnesota if they're unable to stop the run, and I'm going to bank on that. So I went to oddchopper.com. I searched, and I found the 2.5. You want 2.5, right?
And we are live on the Stokastic DFS channel. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. We had absolutely no technical difficulties on the back end here getting ready for this side of things, but we are so... No, we absolutely did. But we are so happy to be here talking a 2-game slate, Monday night doubleheader, some exciting teams today, and a very, very talented DFS player. I think a congratulations is in order for Matt Gajewski. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. Absolutely dominating the college football streets. Here to talk some NFL tonight. What's up, man?
Well, I'm pumped for these teams, man. Even though the spread in the Bills game is not super competitive, I still think the Titans can hang in there a little bit, give us a competitive game. The totals are awesome in both games, so we should see scoring. And then our little nightcap, I know they call it a doubleheader. These games will be on at the same time for most of it, but the later game, Philly, Minnesota, that game's got a tight spread, should be competitive. Lots of fireworks on both sides. I'm pumped.
I'm really, really pumped for that night game just because both offenses, at least in week 1 in Philly and Minnesota, did what I was hoping they would do. Did what I hoped they'd do, I get it, is what I meant. They went more pass heavy. They looked like a changed offense. When you bring in a player like A.J. Brown, you pass more. And that's exactly what we saw. We still saw some rushing upside, obviously, with those touchdowns in the running back position for Philadelphia. And then in Minnesota, same thing, just passed all over the Titans. I'm going to ask you right off the bat here, who wins each game?
I think it's the home teams on both sides. I know that's not the sexy pick. We're not going money line underdog parlay, anything like this, but I do think Buffalo has significant advantages over a Tennessee team that's gotten a little weaker year over year. I think you can make the argument they might be one of the weakest number 1 seeds in NFL history last year. No slight to any Titans fans out there. I like the team, but that's reflected in the spread. Massive favorites there. And on the other side, you've got Philly playing with a strong home field advantage. And they've got a really good defense. I'm curious to see how they treat Justin Jefferson. Last week, Packers didn't do such a good job. 60% of his targets came against linebackers and safeties. I have some confidence that Philly can do a little bit better. And then with some of the guys they have up front, that could help against Dalvin. I'm going to go with both home teams.
Perfectly said. I honestly think it's a push for me with this Minnesota Philly game. I actually kind of like Minnesota money line, but why am I asking you right up front? Because we have an awesome offer. You heard Lofty talk about it last hour at BetMGM. Bet the money line on any of these 4 teams today, and you get $200 in free bets. Link in the video description below. And if Jordan, you could throw that into the chat as well. It's really simple. Free money is hard to come by in sports betting. We got the money line, and we don't have to get cute with it. We don't even have to look at the way it's juiced. We just have to choose the best we can with the money line, because win or lose, we're getting this money back in free bets. Check the link in the video description below. BetMGM. Team third book, third platform. Get in on your third book with BetMGM. Okay, now it's time to dig into the slate. The DFS nitty gritty. You know what we do in Live Before Lock. We go position by position. So, of course, we start with the quarterback position, and it's really exciting. I mean, we've got absolute superstars in Josh Allen, and from a fantasy perspective, Jalen Hurts, and then Kirk Cousins, who, as I already alluded to, is throwing way more often and has a much higher ceiling, in my opinion, than previous seasons. How are you looking at the quarterback position when you're breaking down these 4 players, including Tannehill?
Yeah, you said it well to begin with, but I do think there are a couple tiers here. starting with Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. I think these guys should be grouped together. The projections on our back end, the projections across the industry have these guys very close together. And then when you account for the slight difference in price, there is a difference between them. So going down to Hurts does afford you some salary relief, which you can go and use on someone else on this slate. The salary goes a long way. So I would group these two together from a price adjusted standpoint. And for Hurts, it just comes down to the rushing. The rushing is that important, that impactful for him. That's why from a price adjusted standpoint, he's right up there with Josh Allen. If I were forced to pick one, I'll take Allen. I think he has the higher upside because he rushes quite a bit himself. But I think these two guys are clear in a way the number ones on the slate. Cousins comes in right behind them. His price is going to afford you a little bit more himself, but he doesn't have quite the rushing upside that the two guys at the top have. It's just not his game. What you said about the offense, I love it. Love that they're passing more, playing a little more up tempo. That's going to benefit him, and it gives him a ceiling similar to those players. But on a median basis, I think he's just a little bit below them. Tannehill, clear number 4 for me. Is that how you rank them, though?
It definitely is. I feel bad because the reason Tannehill had a serious ceiling was because he was actually a gadget player in the red zone. They used him in the goal line rush situation much more than you would think, because Derrick Henry had so much attention. I'm not saying that is permanently going away, but over the last, season and a half, obviously half of that has not had Derrick Henry on the field, that rushing upside has gone away. On a 1-game slate, is it possible? Is it kind of interesting because it's 5,200 where the next closest salary quarterback is 6,300? Kind of. But I honestly don't think we need to get there. We're talking a 4-point difference in projection right now over at Stokastic.com, median projection between Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill. So to be honest, I'm trying to get to those top 3. Just kind of look at the boom percentage too. The ceiling is pretty decent for Kirk Cousins at 23 points. For Tannehill, it's a little bit worse here.
Yeah, I do think that makes a lot of sense. Tannehill, you just have so many concerns across the board. I like what you mentioned about his rushing upside and maybe what's taken a hit and causing some of the reduced upside. But I think we could have presumed this even before this week. Like in week 1, I think you could have went into the season, looked at the weapons without AJ Brown, and assumed that it might be a little bit of a step back. We saw that at times last year. Julio goes down. AJ Brown was out for a bit of time. Tannehill's upside really struggled during that span. And right now, I'm not sure the weapons are significantly better. Robert Woods, north of age 30, coming off a season-ending injury, a significant knee injury. And then you have the rookie Treylon Burks, still not capable of working into a full-time role yet. We'll talk about him later, and I do believe he's a player with upside. But early returns weren't great on Burks, at least what he put on the field in week 1. And then from there, you're talking about the old guys he played with last year, Nick Westbrook-Akine, a day 3 rookie in Phillips. It's rough out there for Tannehill right now.
I couldn't agree more, man. And look, I'm glad that someone named Kyle Phillips is stepping up in this offense, and we'll get to the wide receiver position in a minute. But when Nick Westbrook-Akine and Kyle Phillips are the people getting your targets, and Robert Woods coming back from injury, you might have missed your window. And I hope Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill to that extent prove us wrong. But from a fantasy perspective, the way he gets to a ceiling game is if he does some sort of option play twice in the red zone and he ends up rushing it in, because I do not think the passing upside is there. It's certainly there. The ceiling upside is there for these other 3 quarterbacks. I mean, let's move up a tier to Kirk Cousins. We can break down this team as much as we want, but it goes as Justin Jefferson goes now. Thielen took a clear step back in at least week 1. And of course, there's natural variance at the receiver position, but I think Kirk Cousins and this new offense has a much higher ceiling. I think 23 to 28 points in a 1-game situation, not out of the question.
100% agree. And conversely, he has the weapons that we can rely on. Dalvin Cook in the backfield, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen's been reliable, particularly in the red zone. And one thing I want to highlight from earlier when we just talked about the betting spreads, their OC, this new staff, has done a phenomenal job through 1 week getting Jefferson away from teams' primary coverage. You're going to hear a lot about quarterback wide receiver matchups. They were very creative with Justin Jefferson in week 1, getting him advantageous matchups. And I don't know why that would change, especially against another good defense here. And again, looking at Jefferson doing what he did against the Packers, that's no slight to the Packers. I mean, they were considered maybe a top 3 defense based on the talent they had on their team. A lot of people, I wouldn't have recommended this, but if you bench Jefferson or maybe shied away from him in DFS because of the matchup, that certainly is not it. And I don't think it's it here again either. So to that point, Cousins, I think you can rely on him on the pass game. It's just, can he actually have the ceiling that makes him a little bit of a better play over Hurts and Allen? And these are tough decisions. If you're running multiple lineups, honestly, I'm just going to be playing all 3 quarterbacks, not as much Tannehill, really focusing on the top 3. But if you're playing just one, there's enough of a difference in the rushing equity for me to prioritize Hurts and Allen.
Yeah, I think it's something like 85% of the expected ownership is going to these top 3. So you're not alone there by just trying to mix it up. Now, let me ask you, are you being strategic about these Kirk Cousins usage if you're considering multi-lineup entries? Like, are you more likely to play him in a situation where you have a bunch of his pass catchers? Are you able to double stack him? Or are you making some kind of rule where you kind of leave him out unless you have at least one Minnesota pass catcher, whether that's a Jefferson or a Thielen or someone down below like an Irv Smith?
Yeah, the rule I created is 1. I would like to get 2 if possible, but I don't think it's necessary because we have a lot of value plays in the same range. So ideally it's Jefferson, but if not, I think you can stack him with KJ Osborne. I think you can use Thielen. And I think you can honestly go back to Irv Smith, but we'll talk about them later. I want to stack at least 1 because he's the only signal caller on this slate that doesn't win through his legs to some degree. So if he does get to a ceiling performance, it's coming through multiple pass catchers. And the reason why I'll limit it to 1 is we've just seen the target share condensed to Jefferson numerous times throughout his career. It's not always him spreading the ball out, maybe like a Mahomes. We have seen games where it's condensed just to 1 player. So ideally, I think you could use just the 1, but if you get 2, you're definitely not sacrificing anything, in my opinion.
That's exactly the rule that I made, and the exact same reason, because the rushing upside isn't there for Kirk Cousins. And, we've already talked about the natural variance of the way that the receiver position works, but the condensation of targets, the condensing of the offensive production in Minnesota makes it extremely enticing. And we'll get to wide receiver, but it makes it almost impossible to completely move away from Justin Jefferson. Any final words about delineating between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, other than they're both really good and both have crazy high ceilings tonight?
I think you just see a little more efficiency from the Buffalo offense. Again, this is reflected in price, but if you break down like Josh Allen stacks, and again, you and I are making rules for stacks, but if you're just hand building or you're running 150 and you're not making as many rules, you're naturally going to like accidentally run into stacks because it's a 2-game slate.
Right.
So with Josh Allen, you can pay up for Diggs. That's awesome. But the injury to Gabe Davis leads us a ton of affordable pass catchers, not to mention a cheap tight end. So it's not like stacking Josh Allen is expensive. So to me, you gave me 1 lineup. I had to pick just 1 quarterback. I think I'm going to try to stack Josh Allen just because of that. It's affordable. His upside is undeniable. They have a massive implied team total. It's tough though. This is a razor thin difference between him and Jalen Hurts. Those are going to be the 2 most owned quarterbacks, my 2 most owned quarterbacks, but gun to my head, have to pick 1. It's Allen.
Man, I feel the same way. And even without Gabe Davis, and I realized that we kind of blitz through the inactives, which are important, but we have limited time here before the first game starts. I mean, how much does Gabe Davis's absence really affect this team? You got Isaiah McKenzie, you've got Jamison Crowder. We've already had questions here. I believe we had a super chat here, so I definitely want to get kind of zip forward and talk about Khalil Shakir. Let's talk about it in terms of Josh Allen. Can these players step up along with Stephon Diggs and obviously Dawson Knox, who are going to see like a crazy high snap share, maybe close to 100%?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Gabe Davis is a player that's very recent to the full-time role in this offense. They played without him with essentially the same receiving core for years. You swap out Jamison Crowder for Cole Beasley, and you're really looking at the same receiving core that they had last year. So I think Josh Allen can certainly produce without Gabe Davis. He's done it in the past. We've seen Isaiah McKenzie play situationally, and we've seen Crowder be a pseudo alpha, if you want to call it that, for the New York Jets in the past. I know he's a bit older and he's kind of fallen out of favor, but what I'm trying to say is he's a reliable pass catcher. It's not like we're pulling a guy completely off the street here. And there's a lot of optimism on Khalil Shakir. This is highly productive rookie out of Boise State, checked a lot of boxes other than premier draft capital, highly athletic, productive all throughout his college career. And we've seen Buffalo hit on these guys. Gabe Davis is one himself. Khalil Shakir also had an awesome preseason. So early returns on him have been solid. And then this Buffalo team will use 4 wide. Now, some of that's going to be Knox. He has a pretty high slot rate for a tight end, but Knox can't fill that void entirely himself. They're going to need him in line at times. They're going to take him off the field occasionally, and that's going to be Khalil Shakir that comes onto the field. So he kind of occupies your dart throw in large field tournaments that I think you could look to.
And there's some flexibility that comes with playing a player like Josh Allen in a tournament situation. Not only do we have sort of mix and match players at this bottom tier that we're talking about with a Shakir or moving up to a McKenzie or a Crowder tier, but remember, he hits his true ceiling, Allen does, by rushing, having some sort of 40-yard big rush on the ground, adding a touchdown, maybe adding a QB sneak touchdown at the end or something like that. You understand how he gets to a true ceiling 35, 40-point performance. We then can just use our showdown lineup building principle, even though it's technically a 2-game slate. We just can get weird with a Josh Allen player just because we have limited options and limited salary options there. But again, he's a player who I did not make a rule where I needed to have at least one of his wide receivers. I knew I would naturally get there, just the nature of the slate, the nature of getting the value, but he's a player who play on his own as well, and then just all pay down options everywhere else.
Yeah, if you lock Josh Allen, you're going to get his receivers in 100% of lineups because they're so cheap. Now, it's not going to be 100% Diggs, but you're going to get a mixture of Crowder and McKenzie. Like, you're going to end up with Josh Allen stacks if you play him. I think you'd have to make a rule to not end up with one.
Yeah, like a lot of thumbs down on the fantasy cruncher if you got it. And yeah, it's a situation where there's a reason he's garnering over 40% of the expected ownership tonight, guys. It's because he is a clear, fantastic play. What makes it really interesting is that Jalen Hurts wrinkle, where basically Hurts has all the same upside and has AJ Brown, a more full receiving core, you could say, and both defenses that these two Russian quarterbacks are going against, I would say, are league average. Not scared of them. I'm not adjusting my projections really for either offense. Anything else you want to add about the quarterback position before we get to the more voluminous positions, the running back and the wide receiver?
I'm good on quarterback, but if you have questions, throw them into chat and we can circle back.
Yeah, I see Jorge with the super chat. What's up, man? Dude, you're always so nice with these super chats. Thanks so much for hanging out. And we are definitely going to get to this top low-owned options. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe. We got a ton of people in here already. Laffy, help get the likes up already. Let's make him feel good about his work and add up to the likes in here. Again, thanks for hanging out. Hit subscribe to the channel. Help the YouTube algorithm understand who we are. And by the way, guys, if you want to check out what we've got going on over at Stokastic.com, we can give you 3 days free if you are a new Stokastic user. Absolutely all the premium tools that we have over at Stokastic.com. We can't give you Fantasy Cruncher because we don't have that. We don't own that, but we can give you everything else, full access for 3 days free if you are a new user there. And if you've already checked it out or you're already a subscriber over there, just hit the like button. Really helps us out. Okay, guys, running back position. You got Dalvin Cook. You got Derrick Henry. You got a huge tier break. There's Sanders and Singletary, and it's everybody else. How are you looking at this slate? Just like from a pure projection standpoint, let's not even bring ownership into this. Does anybody else other than Cook or Henry have a true chance of being the number one running back on this slate?
I think you could see an outside chance for a Singletary, a Moss, or a Miles Sanders. Outside chances, that outside being the operative word here. I really think most of the opportunity and upside is condensed through those players, but we have a lot of alternatives, especially at the receiver position. So the question might not honestly be, okay, is Cook or Derrick Henry going to lead the position in scoring? They very well could, but they still might not be the engine that gets you to that GPP winning score if we see eruption spots from Justin Jefferson or Diggs or some of these other players. So it's kind of the tough decisions you're making between positions with your lineups, not necessarily at the running back position alone. I don't think you can view it in a vacuum.
Agreed. Fully agree. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing Henry or Cook. Just because Henry certainly underperformed last week doesn't mean he doesn't have 3 touchdown upside in a game like this. 200 yards rushing is possible. Now, we all know how good Buffalo's defense is. They were number 1 in my favorite fantasy-related defensive stat, schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed. So I would say Cook has the better matchup, but Philly's defense traditionally is great at stopping the run. So you got to hope for more opportunities in the passing game, which goes against our overall narrative about how Kirk Cousins gets to his ceiling game. So you got to make a choice there. And then I heard Lofty talking him up. I wasn't surprised, but Miles Sanders did have 2 touches inside the 10. You realize just a blistering amount of Eagles scoring rushing touchdowns in week 1. Eventually, that's going to consolidate to one player. And while it could be Jalen Hurts, I actually think Miles Sanders, now we're introducing salary at 5,300 on this slate. Really, really interesting upside. I'm going to have a good amount of him.
I am too. If you were just to go to Fantasy Cruncher, run optimals blindly behind the scenes, you're not going to get a ton of Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry. You're going to end up with more of the mid-price running backs and the elite receivers. That's just the way that those tools are going to direct you. Now, our expected ownership tool still has Dalvin Cook really high. I haven't searched around every place in the industry, so it's very possible that he comes in with that ownership, and people, just building by hand are going to gravitate towards these backs. But I think when we see lower ownership on a Devin Singletary and a Miles Sanders, and our projections on the back end are giving us a lot of them, that might be a really good leverage spot to target. And it's one way I'm trying to prioritize building lineups tonight. So to the Miles Sanders point, I do think he's a solid play. It's the same worry you have with Philly every single year. They're going to involve multiple backs, but we can have some confidence in Philly with Sanders. Yes, it will be a timeshare, but led the team in snaps, 15 more snaps than Gainwell. Some people presume Gainwell would be the third down back. Sanders actually ran more routes, 19 routes to Gainwell's 10. These guys are all involved, and they're not necessarily playing clear roles. So with Sanders leading that pack and finally getting some red zone work, thank goodness he scored a touchdown after his scoreless 2021. That was brutal. I played him a lot, but you can't have some confidence at his price. And the timeshare is the reason he's not priced like Derrick Henry. Like, that's taken into account. So yes, Henry and Dalvin Cook project better, but in terms of what your lineup looks like with Sanders, I'm very interested there.
I guess the real proposition that so many people are going to be making today, especially if they're moving off of the Cook Henry build, do you go Sanders or do you go Singletary? Same exact price on DraftKings, 5,300. Singletary essentially split time with Zach Moss, was the only running back in that 3-headed monster in Buffalo to not fumble in week 1. I'm not a big pass the eye test kind of analyst here, but Singletary looks significantly better to me as a rusher, but they use Zach Moss a lot in terms of positional rushing attempts, 57% Singletary, 42% Moss, almost 43%. That doesn't sound like someone who's got the backfield locked up at 5,300. I think if you're just using a 1-week sample, Sanders clearly has the more opportunistic upside if you're just looking at the team. But Singletary down the stretch last year was phenomenal and is in a better game environment as 10-point favorites. No?
I agree with you as far as game environment goes. I also agree with you that if you force me to pick one in a vacuum, it would be Sanders. Looking at the opportunity stacks, which you reference a lot of them, it was essentially a 50-50 committee between these guys in terms of opportunity. The routes actually very similar between these players, and that's not a role I necessarily thought Zach Moss would play. 14 routes, yeah. Devin Singletary ran 18. Now, there was a difference in snaps. Singletary 34, Zach Moss 22. So I do think pricing is correct here. I think there should be a slight edge in favor of Singletary. But ultimately, this backfield is a little more split right down the middle than Philadelphia is, in my opinion, based on the very small sample, it is small, that we do have this year. But just looking at our projected ownership behind the scenes, if you make the pivot from Singletary down to Zach Moss, you're getting quite a bit of leverage here. It's about 10-ish% in some spots for essentially the same workload. And you're honestly getting some leverage if you're only playing one of Singletary and Sanders. Sanders is projected a little lower owned here too. Again, a 200 price difference, but if you can find it, you're getting some slight leverage by playing Sanders over Singletary here as well. I don't think you should necessarily fade Singletary. I honestly think you could play Singletary and Sanders together. But if just playing one lineup, this might be a calculated spot where you think about going to a different back for such an uncertain situation. We're essentially talking about a 41.5% ownership share on a player with very uncertain workload statistics.
Yeah. Gosh, I still don't. This is my bias, man. I just don't think Zach Moss looks like a great player, like a good player
me either,
at all.
He runs like he has a
get it.
piano on his back.
I do not feel that way about Devin Singletary. He's never been one of my favorite players or anything. It's just I feel like there's a huge talent disparity when I'm watching them. I digress. And the numbers make sense if you want to pivot down there. And I liked your analysis about Singletary versus Sanders. Let's talk about these secondary options on their respective teams, and I'll kind of put them all in a similar tier. Alexander Madison is that secondary option that makes no sense. He's almost always priced up just in case Dalvin Cook gets hurt in the middle of the week. Then you got the Philly secondary options like Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, not expected to garner much ownership. And then from there, it gets really, really dicey. So we'll start with that Madison, Gainwell, Scott tier. You go in there at all? I honestly think 17% Gainwell ownership sounds a little high.
It's probably a little high considering the alternatives that are narrowly priced ahead of him. But if you're just talking about players that are on the field outside of the tier we just talked about, I think Gainwell's probably number one. With that said, I think you're getting much better opportunity by going up and even playing a Moss. But Gainwell, the optimistic side is he's a good pass catcher. Again, he didn't clearly have that role last week. But if you were to just talk about what is Gainwell's path to a ceiling performance, well, maybe he gets all the long down and distance work, the hurry up work. Again, this guy played receiver at Memphis, but again, they just flat out didn't show that. So it's hard to project. Boston Scott, he's even less involved than Gainwell, but he's involved everywhere on the field. When they do occasionally use him, it's not like he's limited to a certain situation. You'll see him get a red zone touch. So he could score, which keeps him in play. But to your point, or at least what it sounds like you're doing a little bit, is avoiding some of these really low guys. And that's been my approach here as well.
Boston Scott stat line looks good because he gets in the end zone, right? It's 4 total attempts. What I would really like to see is Gainwell get all 9 of the combined attempts that him and Scott got, and had Scott just basically be a scat back or just a special team player. Because I do think Gainwell is talented. Like you said, his receiving prowess is pretty good. And you know, it's not going to happen like this every single week. But outside of A.J. Brown, there was a super flat target share. Gainwell gets the same amount of targets as Devonta Smith, as Dallas Goedert. It's only 4, but it just talks about just his place, his totem pole in the offense. So if I'm taking a chance on any of these lower tier, I guess Gainwell is the best of them, but I'm unhappy that I'm seeing a fifth of lineups almost expected to have him in there. I guess I get it at 4,500. You taking any shots on like Hassan Haskins, or I guess a James Cook as well? Someone is available to you. They are running backs available on the slate.
I wanted to ask you, how many snaps for Cook tonight? James Cook, that is, not Dalvin, James.
Yeah, I think Dalvin's pretty safe in terms of his snap share.
I
just want to make sure I baseline it off of what he had last week. It wasn't good. He's probably going to play less than 20% of snaps.
I think so too. You know what I think was most telling is he wasn't involved early in the game. Like, he came in well after Moss. He came in well after Singletary. It wasn't like, oh, James Cook gets the first carry, fumble, boom, he's benched. He came in after those guys. To me, that indicated his role was going to be limited to begin with. If you want to take a shot, I think you can. I don't love his price. You just pay a couple hundred and you get Boston Scott. You get Zach Moss. You maybe get a Hassan Haskins, whoever it is you like in that range. They're just a little more secure. And with Haskins, you know, the Tennessee situation, we should maybe dissect a little bit. They don't have Dontrell Hilliard. They did not activate Julius Chestnut either, which was a bit of a surprise to me. So they're going into this game with Derrick Henry, of course, the 4th round rookie, I believe, day 3 rookie, Hassan Haskins, who's this big bruising back from Michigan. He caught a few passes in college. He's actually decent at it, but he doesn't project to be like this 3rd down back or anything, if you know what I mean. And then they have a special teamer, Trenton Cannon. He essentially only plays on special teams, but he's built a little more like a pass catching back. Does he play on 3rd downs? I think you could make the argument that Derrick Henry might get a little more receiving work, something he's done very very situationally in the past, but we've seen a few instances due to injury where Henry's gotten a couple more targets. So how do you think that shakes out?
Okay, so I think the fact that Dontrell Hilliard is not playing is important here. The pass catching upside, we've seen games where Derrick Henry gets 5 targets. There are 10-point underdogs. The expectation is at some point, Buffalo is going to be down in this game. If you want Derrick Henry, likely your very best player on the field, to be productive in that kind of game environment, down a touchdown or more, you're going to have to dump it off to him, like you saw the Chargers did with Austin Eckler at the end of the game on Thursday. It's not usually the role for Derrick Henry, but without Hilliard in there, I don't think you suddenly see Hassan Haskins get a ton of work. I do think the pass catching upside for Henry on a night like tonight is a little bit higher than typical, than when they're in control.
Agreed.
Anything else here at the running back position? I think we hit it. Let's answer that question directly. Your favorite low owned option. So we'll say sub 30% is probably low owned in this 2-game slate.
Oh man, that takes away Moss for me. He's 33. He's my guy. If you're making me go lower than that, it's Gainwell.
I would agree with that. And right, yeah, Moss is right on that line. He's probably my answer. I'm just not touching Boston Scott or Hassan Haskins, but I'm also not entering 150. So there you go. That pretty much sums up the running back position. And let's sum up how you should be getting into the action over at No House Advantage. No House Advantage, first of all, they had a new update, and their platform, their site looks so awesome. And let's talk about some of the contests they've had. They've had serious overlay in all of their main contests for these recent slates. And it's the same thing here on Monday Night Football. The NFL 20,000 Monday Night Football Madness with 10K up top to first. Currently, guys, only 395 entries out of 1,200. 33% full. 2/3 of the entries not in there. That is an opportunity to take advantage of. I know I'm going to get in on the action over there. Matt, as you're talking, I'm entering more opportunities there. They've also got the $5 entries, 2K play action, which also looks like it's not going to fill today. Take advantage of No House Advantage. And also, we will give you a promo code in the description below. I'm like blanking out. We got a promo code in the description below. Check it out. No House Advantage today. Okay, the wide receiver position. There are some pretty good players. AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs. That's a Pro Bowl roster right there. I think that's the toughest question on the whole slate is, are you prioritizing any of these big 3, or are you building differently and say going to those big 2 running backs?
I'm prioritizing the wide receiver heavy build. Slight preference to Diggs. Just the offense he plays in is going to be a little more up-tempo, pass-heavy than most in the NFL, really. And his price is affordable. So there's a vast difference in price between him and Jefferson. And then him and A.J. Brown are comparable in price, but I think the opportunity is different with these offenses, the way they want to play. I'm expecting Philadelphia to be a little run-heavier long-term and Buffalo to be a little pass-heavier long-term. So that would give me an edge toward Diggs if I was forced to build just one lineup. If you're building multiple, the easy answer is to play all 3 and rotate them. Force them all in the same lineup if you want. If you're playing 150, there's a lot of ways to approach these 3, but gun to my head, forced to pick only one, it's Diggs.
Yeah, I guess that's right. And I think that's what our projections would tell you. But I have to tell you, I'm no Laffy here. I'm no Philly fan. I grew up in the DC area, but I had a huge exhale and a huge smile on my face when I saw AJ Brown just dominating targets for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not scared of the Minnesota defense at all. He's 3rd in terms of salary ranking. He needs about 22, 23 points to feel really good about him in a GPP. I'm starting to feel like in this offense, 22, 23 points, that is possible every single time he steps out onto the field. Thank you, Philadelphia Eagles offense, for being rational with a superstar like AJ Brown. 41% expected ownership, lower than Jefferson, lower than Diggs. I'm all over this today.
Yeah, I love him too. He's right there with Diggs for me. I'm trying to play a lot of AJ Brown. Again, my preferred strategy today has been playing more of the expensive receivers than the running backs. That could very well be wrong, but it's led me to a lot of AJ Brown as well. seeing him be a clear priority over Devontae Smith was telling. And, maybe Philly really respects the coverage of Jeff Okudah, who shadowed Devontae Smith. I'm not sure. Early returns on Okudah haven't been great. Mm-hmm. Either way, they prioritized AJ Brown, which is something that any team having a receiver like AJ Brown should do. I think you can play him with confidence.
And even with all those targets, in terms of opportunity value, the metric I always use is expected fantasy points. That's just air yards, rushes, targets, where and when you got them on the field, rolled it in a scale that everyone understands. Fantasy points, Justin Jefferson came out first, as you would expect, in expected fantasy points. He had 18 expected fantasy points and totally demolished that expected rate, scoring multiple times against Green Bay. He's not going to do that. He's not going to be that wide open, scoring that many times every single week. Actually, Cooper Kupp is proving me wrong every time I say that. But Justin Jefferson needs a monster game to feel really good about him at 9K, probably like a 28, 29, maybe a 30-point score. That's certainly possible. We got him projected for over 21 DraftKings points. Talk to me about the ceiling potential against Bradbury and the rest of this improved Philadelphia secondary.
Yeah, it's obviously there. It's there no matter what the price tag is. He's getting close to Kupp territory. And their OC is being very creative getting him the ball, which I love. Again, 60% of targets came against linebackers and safeties. You can't have that if you're Green Bay. Awesome. You love that if you're Minnesota. He's just a different price point. And I don't think the opportunity is vastly different between Diggs, Brown, and Jefferson. So again, playing just one lineup, I'll go the cheaper route and make what I think is a little more balanced of a build. But I'm playing a lot of Jefferson myself, and I can't fault you if you prioritize him over the other two.
Well, especially with Diggs, I get it. 1,500 in salary is very valuable. We're talking DraftKings here. When you're moving down from Jefferson to Diggs, come on, like 10% less ownership to move up to that kind of superstar. I'm going AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson and kind of moving away from the field. Not saying that Diggs is a bad play, and not saying I'm not going to stack up Allen and Diggs at all, but just the way this ownership is playing out and the way the ceiling is kind of the same for all three players, I gotta go with AJ or Justin Jefferson. I will say in median projection, Jefferson is 5 points ahead of AJ Brown, so he looks way ahead of AJ Brown in terms of median projection, at least.
Yeah, it's still a viable strategy. It's always about how you're building your lineups, not the individual players necessarily. We like to break them down, and it's valuable, but it's all dependent on where you're intelligently gaining your leverage. And I don't dislike your strategy at all. I'm doing it a bit myself.
There you go. All right. The mid-tier is also pretty strong at this position. Obviously, Adam Thielen, kind of that 1B tier, although we didn't really see it like that in week one. 5,600, not a bad price. Still the wide receiver 4 in salary rank. And then Devonta Smith, who, as we already mentioned, just 4 targets, completely underutilized, a goose egg in the fantasy department. He'll have better days, obviously. And I still like him better than players like Robert Woods, certainly better than KJ Osborne or even Treylon Burks, who will eventually come on. Devonta Smith is a high variance, low floor option, clearly week to week in this offense.
Yeah, I think that's the worst game of his career. So hopefully better days ahead. Again, he's never played with AJ Brown, so I don't know that for a fact. But overall, he's had a very strong start to his career. So I'm going to go back to some Devonta Smith. I think if you're fading AJ Brown for some reason, again, I don't recommend that. You could use him as a direct pivot, a leverage pivot. You can use this same approach with Adam Thielen, but I expect Adam Thielen to come in with a little higher ownership over a guy like Devonta Smith. I think, and that's reflected in our ownership projections as well. Adam Thielen, just in the pass-heavy offense that Minnesota projects to play, he's going to come out a little bit ahead of Devonta Smith in most projections and ownership projections, but there's a difference in their price too. Adam Thielen's kind of in a range by himself, but he's very easy to get there. With Smith, you have plenty of pivots down there. So I think a lot of people, instead of playing Smith, are going to go to the Buffalo receivers, who we're going to talk about in a second. You might be getting a lot of leverage with a guy like Smith.
I think the mid-tier, like this 4 to 6K range, is not going to get used at all. There's like 2-3 players that I really want in there. And I honestly don't get why KJ Osborne is seeing so much in terms of expected ownership right now. I realize people in the chat are like, it's Osborne season, it's happening. I think a third option is going to emerge in this pass-heavier Minnesota offense. But what evidence do we have right now that it's going to be Osborne? Expected fantasy points, it was just 5 DraftKings expected fantasy points in terms of opportunity value last week. I'd rather take a chance on Treylon Burks, who has half the ownership and is $200 cheaper in salary. Burks is eventually going to get usage in this offense, or, I mean, they're going to try and see if he sucks. I don't think he even does. It's just, it just was a rough offseason in terms of stories, and then he didn't get a huge snap share. But in terms of opportunity per snap, it was actually okay for Burks. What do you think about him? And again, a likely pass-heavy game script for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think Kyle Phillips being banged up helps. Again, we don't know if he's going to be on some sort of pitch count or anything, but he's banged up. That could help Burks. And like you mentioned, Burks was highly involved when he was out there. He just wasn't out there a lot. And he was involved downfield. He led the team in air yards despite playing fewer snaps than both Phillips, Robert Woods. Essentially was fourth on their team among pass catches and snaps. All that can only grow for him. I think what he put on the field was somewhat positive. You know, it didn't turn into a lot of fantasy points, but the usage was at least there. So I like Burks as a pivot. I'm okay with Osborne. He is coming in with a little more ownership than I'd like. Like, I think Woods is more involved with him for 100 more. And then like at 4K flat, Jamison Crowder projects to be under-owned compared to all the guys we've mentioned so far. And I think Jamison Crowder is pretty close to a full-time player in this offense. I'm going to be playing a ton of him as a direct pivot off of both McKenzie, who's a little bit ahead of him, and then all the guys we just mentioned. You're getting an attachment to Josh Allen, extremely under-owned here. I don't know how Crowder actually comes in this low.
I think that's my answer for Jorge. Remember your super chat, bud. I think Crowder is my favorite as well. In terms of weighted opportunity, it didn't look spectacular for Jamison Crowder. Touchdown upside, likely snap share. I agree. I see this as an every down player in Jamison Crowder. And while people are going to get excited about Isaiah McKenzie, I still think they want Crowder to be a thing. They signed Crowder to be a thing. I guess Isaiah McKenzie did play 44% of snaps and Crowder 30% of snaps. I'm not sure if that holds week to week. I'm really not sure. I think Crowder is my favorite at under 17% expected ownership. If you want to go down the list, Kyle Phillips certainly had the opportunity value, like we talked about. 3,600. I'll certainly get to him over Nick Westbrook-Ikine at 3,900. And I don't really have the guts. I'm not Neil Orfield cool to go to Quez Watkins or Jake Kumaro, but if you people trying to chase the Millie, I absolutely think they're in play at under 7% ownership.
If you're considering Khalil Shakir and you're playing the Millie, you should definitely be playing some Jake Kumaro. Joe Buscaglia, the Bills beat reporter. This is just a little tidbit here. Jake Kumaro took first team snaps and warmups with the Bills just a few minutes ago. Now, I still think Crowder, Isaiah McKenzie, and of course Diggs are ahead of Kumaro, but I don't know that the assumption that Khalil Shakir is the wide receiver 4 is something we can write in stone. Again, if I were just to make a guess, I think it probably is Shakir as the wide receiver 4. But what I'm trying to say is we don't know that. So a lot of people today have been hyping up Shakir. I think if you play some Kumaro, you might be getting a little bit of a leverage gain there as well. Kumaro's been with this team a long time now. No, he's never really played a significant role, but they kept him around for a reason. He's a veteran at this point. There are reasons to play some Kumaro over a guy like Shakir.
Interesting. The man that made Aaron Rodgers furious, Jake Kumaro, could have a real impact on the slate. Hey, Manny C, thanks so much for the super chat, man. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you for saying thank you. We're very appreciative always of you guys hanging out today. And yeah, let's get a move on here because I realize we need to do the tight end position and we got to talk about defenses as well. And the slate starts in about 8 minutes here. Oh, we got one from Mac. Is it a season-long trade situation? Okay, as I get ready for the tight end position, would you trade Debo, Gibson, Godwin, Curtis Samuel for Diggs, Zeke, and Juju?
I
want the left.
I would keep the left.
Yeah. No, just because Diggs is a good player, I'm not sure I would take the uncertainty of Zeke and Juju. Hey, we're on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel 7 days a week. Check us out over at Stokastic Fantasy Football. Hit the subscribe button over there as well. Okay, here we go. Notorious is in the chat going, hell no. What's up, Nick? Okay, guys, tight end position. Really only like 6 relevant players here. We got Dallas Goedert, tight end 1 at 4,600. Dawson Knox a little below at 4K. And then I already saw questions about Irv Smith at 3,300 in that next tier. Goddard has an 11-point projection. No one else in double digits. Any favorites stick out here? Anyone you're really getting to in lineups?
Yeah, I like Goddard, but I also don't hate making a pivot to Dawson Knox, who didn't have the same opportunity that we saw last year. This is week one we're talking about, but now you're removing Gabe Davis from the offense. You have a tight end who has experience expanding out into the slot and playing a heavy receiving role for this team. Maybe it's not McKenzie, Crowder, Shakir, Kumaro that takes on the larger role. Maybe those guys see snaps, but maybe it's maybe it's Knox who has the elevated target share in this offense. It's very possible. So I'm playing a lot of Knox as a pivot off Goddard. I'm still playing some Goddard, don't get me wrong, but I like Knox a lot here.
Yeah, I like Knox significantly more than Irv Smith, and I know if our Sunday Live Before Lock buddy Eric Linguist were here, he would be hyping up Irv Smith to the nth degree. I think it could still happen for Irv Smith, regardless of how many fingers he's got fully functional right now. Remember, he had that surgery in the weeks leading up to the season. Who knows if he's truly 100%, but he's 3,300 on the DraftKings slate. He's expected to have under 25% ownership, which is, 2-game slate is relatively low for this onesie position. I do think there's some touchdown upside. I think you're getting 5 points tonight. I'm sorry.
I think there's a chance for a larger role. This guy is supposed to be a main pass catcher for them. And Munt, 16 snaps, Smith, 15. I think that could only grow. I think you're seeing the floor from Smith right now. So he could remain at the floor, very possible, or he could ascend. I think for that reason, you can take shots, but he's still behind Knox and Goddard.
I agree. It's exactly how I'm seeing it as well. Then we'll go to the lower tiers. I mean, Austin Hooper, I got some best ball share, so I wouldn't be super unhappy. We actually have him projected a little bit higher than Irv Smith. Again, as a median projection, doesn't necessarily mean we want to play them in a GPP because we're looking for ceiling, but we have him projected higher than his salary-based expectations. And we have Jeff Swaim because the Titans get weird in the red zone, and sometimes they throw to their tight end 2 or 3 or somebody you've never heard of, like an offensive lineman. So Jeff Swaim is rosterable. Are you getting to any of these players? Unless you're playing the Millie Maker, I don't feel like you need to do that.
Minimal amount of Hooper, but not Swaim.
Yeah. All right. In expected fantasy points, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Again, just an opportunity value. Jeff Swaim had the highest expected fantasy points in week 1 of all of these tight ends. I don't think that holds the rest of the year. Just a fun little fact there. Derek Dominic, thank you for the super chat. What's your favorite backup quarterback to roster? None. None is a viable answer here.
I think this is like that inside joke.
Oh,
we roster the backup quarterback and showdown. You're the only one that does, and you make all the money.
Gardner.
Dude, you're not going to pick Malik Willis?
Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, you're an idiot. Yeah, it's Malik Willis. Obviously, like Tannehill is actually the one who could get benched. I mean, there were some like low-key reports that they're really unhappy with him. I actually don't think it's that dire, but yeah, Malik Willis, if he came into a game, he's going to rush like crazy. That's the obvious correct answer. Yeah. Woo. Okay, any last words about the tight end position? We kind of zoomed through there, but we got 4 minutes to slate.
Yeah, there's not a ton to say. Maybe like a very, very deep Tommy Sweeney, because, backup tight ends always score on these short slates, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Tommy Sweeney, play him at your own risk. I just laugh because DFS Chief says, I'm high as a giraffe testicle, which I realize is like relatively high, but also I don't understand what it means. It made me chuckle. All right, guys, if you want to keep...
Just kidding, Sweeney's out.
Oh, thank you. No Sweeney. Zero Sweeney, guys. I also want to mention that streaming right now on the YouTubes, right here on the Stokastic DFS channel. Oh, thanks, Jorge, for gifting out some memberships as well. Just want to mention that Eitan Shander, the incomparable Eitan Shander, betting extraordinaire, is going to be watching this game live on Playback. If you haven't checked out Playback, it is awesome. You log in with your videos, your cable provider, you watch the game live with Eitan and friends, and they go through live analysis with you. Definitely check it out. Check out their stream and learn how to get into Playback today. There's a link in the video description below that starts in just 3 minutes, which means we only have 3 minutes to talk about the defenses here. Are there any defenses that really stick out? They're all 2,200 to 3,200. Two obvious ones that we like would be the favorites, the Bills and Eagles. The Bills are expected to get half of all defensive ownership right now. Can you play them in large field GPPs?
You can, but you better be really weird somewhere else. A lot of discussion on Twitter today with this idea surrounding Cincinnati from the main slate, but it's exactly what you have to do. Take low owned plays somewhere else and you can play the Bills. Otherwise, I think the easiest way to gain leverage is to X them out in large field tournaments.
I agree. I mean, I look, you can get weird in a slate like this, but why do you want to get with the field in a position with super high variance? The Bills defense might come out of this 2-game slate and be like, man, the Bills defense just absolutely slaughtered. And it wasn't our night. That's okay. Ultimately, I feel like the way to differentiate yourself so easily from so many people, remember, it's about being unique on a 2-game slate, is by going no Bills. I think this game ends up closer than we think. I think the Bills still win, but I'm not playing the defense. Then we move to the other tier, the 3K and below. Eagles, probably my least favorite. I actually think the Vikings and Titans I'll have a bunch of, even though they're just projected for 5 fantasy points each. I guess the Titans would be my favorite, the way I'm getting to it. They're the lowest expected ownership, and that's really the only reason. Josh Allen, if you talk about no house advantage, awesome sponsor. They have our prop for 0.5 interceptions. I'm going over all day. Highest absolute value on our no house advantage projections, our prop projections, absolutely going there. Titans defense, not crazy, right?
No, definitely not. You could see a kick return and that gets you there. Crazy things happen in football.
Crazy things happen in football. I think that's a beautiful closing line as we are less than a minute till lock. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And guys, this guy over here in the college football streets, in the NFL streets, his knowledge is unparalleled. Make sure you follow him at Matt_Gajewski. Any final words for the people before we get out of here?
Enjoy the game tonight, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It is much appreciated, and hope somebody takes down some money tonight.
Yeah, let's win some money. I love the Monday Night Football doubleheader. Man, not every week, but I really enjoy this. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for hitting the like button. Let's get to 500. We're going to have a lot of fun. 2 great games coming up. Check out No House Advantage. Bet the money line on one of these 2 games and win $200 free over at BetMGM. We've got so much for you, and the free trial over at Stokastic.com. For Matt, he's got a really good name because my name is Matt as well. Follow me at Draftaholic. Until next time at the Stokastic DFS channel. We'll see you guys later.